Hello and welcome to the League One Lowdown brought to you by the Football Deck. It's preview show time with myself, Callum Davis, and Sam. Sam, I now know what it was like to be a Leyton Orient fan last season after Lincoln City's defeat to Chelsea in the League Cup. What a night for that, but how are you personally?
All good, my friend. Yeah, it's the hope that kills you, isn't it? You're leading 1-0 at half
Very much.
time, and then you get the Premier League quality in the second half. Just lapses of concentration, isn't it? It's just the difference in like League One level. You probably get away with it.
That's how it happens, isn't it? But there you go. I'll get that. I'll get that mentioning now before I go on about it throughout the whole podcast because it was certainly a night to remember at Sinsel Bank. But as always, we'll go through the fixtures happening this weekend. We'll talk about some of the more important games we think anyway at the start of the show. We try and switch it up though as the weeks goes on. We'll have our fan feature brought to you by Sky Bet, and then we'll round out the games happening this week. But before we get into it, first of all, make sure you subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss all the episodes when they go up, including the review show on Sunday with Seb and Jamie. We don't really need to talk about the predictions, Sam, because there wasn't many right answers, were there?
No, there wasn't. In
Nice.
fact, you only got 7 points, and I got 6. So we'll quickly gloss over last week because it was absolutely abysmal, quite frankly. Just to give you the score update, you're currently on 84 points, and I'm on 65. While we're on the predictions before we get cracking, we would like to thank everyone who nominated us for the FCA award, the Football Content Award. Nominations are now open. So if you'd like to go and vote for us, it will be in the comments section. But thank you to everyone who initially did the vote for us to even get nominated for award. It is greatly appreciated by all of us.
It's slightly mental as well. We're just a bunch of
Yeah.
lads who like talking about League One football, so to have that sort of recognition um, is uh, is pretty amazing. We'll see how that unfolds. But yes, all your support, all your subscriptions, all the likes, all the comments, everything is hugely appreciated. So thank you for everyone taking part in that. So Sam, let's get on with the predictions, and we're starting with your team. Actually, I feel like
Yeah.
we've gone so against talking about our own teams in recent weeks that we neglect to really talk about Leyton
Yeah.
Orient and Lincoln at the minute for fear of favouritism. But Leyton Orient, a pretty mixed start to the season for your team, coming up against one of the form
Mhm.
sides in the division in Stevenage.
Yeah. We never beat Stevenage at home. I can't. I think we beat them once in the cup, but in the league, yeah, it's a travesty. Quite frankly, I remember first season in League One, we lost 3-0 to them. The season we got promoted from League Two, it was 0-0. So the games are always like they either win like 2 or 3-0, or it's like 0-0. There's never we don't tend to beat them at home. And the way they start the season, Stevenage, I think they've surprised everyone. I think it's fair to say they're still extremely solid defensively with just the 6 goals conceded, which is the second best in the league, only bettered by Cardiff, who have conceded 5. And they've scored 12 goals as well, which is 1.3 a game, I think it averages out to. So an impeccable start to the season for Stevenage. And there is a distinct style of play. There is a bit more flair in the final third. They still get the ball forward quickly. They're 19th in average possession with 44%. So they still like to get the ball forward quickly. But it's what they do in the final third. They're a lot more. They've got a lot more flair, especially on the wide areas with Patterson and Campbell. And then Jamie Reid looks fit and firing. They've also used the joint least number of players along with Wimbledon and Barnsley this season with 19 players, which does help because everyone knows their job in the team. Especially when you're in and out of possession, everyone knows key attributes of each other, and it just works better. Where on the flip side, if you look at Leyton Orient, my team, what was it, 16 new players in the building, 24 players used so far this season, which puts them lower, like the 16th most, I think it is. And it's shown in the form. One win in their last 5, one draw and 3 defeats. And you look at the performances against Reading and Northampton, for example, you're like, this team on paper should be in the top half, at least challenging for top 6, and it's not. But then you look at the performances against Port Vale, especially for the first 45 minutes, for a period against Bolton and Wigan, you're like, could be a really good team. I think we also have to bear in mind, from as much as we all get frustrated, we all want our football club to do well, and I'll keep going back to it. We were 21st in November on the 21st of November, we were 21st last season.
Yeah.
It is an improvement on the 24th of September to be 14th. So while it is incredibly frustrating to be so up and down, we do have to accept, in a way, with so many new players, there are going to be peaks and troughs, so to speak.
The interesting thing I find with Stevenage is they're not in any of the top three metrics, I
Mm.
suppose, in terms of shots on targets, expected goals. They're not in the top three for any of those sorts of categories. The only one they are is fouls per match. Only Lincoln and Bradford have got more, so they've still got, I suppose, that Steve
Yeah.
Evans, almost dare I say, tax attached to them, where they do like to commit a foul or
Mm.
two during the 90 minutes, 13 to be exact. But I think that's the thing that's impressed us about Stevenage. I was always very skeptical of Alex Ravel's ability to move them away from that
Mm.
brutalist style of football that Steve Evans plays. And I know there's a lot of talk at the minute. I read an article on the BBC yesterday about how Sam Allardyce's tactics are coming back into fashion in the Premier League, which that they might be. But in League One, we're not really seeing that. The teams that don't like to play with the ball are still managing to get the ball on the ground and move it quickly. And I'm impressed with what Stevenage have done. They've done that transition from the old style of football to the new style very well.
Yeah.
And that's what's impressed me with Alex Ravel, because he's not the most experienced manager in
No.
the division, is he? So for him to come in and do it with Stevenage, obviously a club he knows quite well, but still very impressive. I still am sceptical of Stevenage's ability to maintain this over a full season, but they have done it for 8 games.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen any major reason why they shouldn't be able to do it for the rest of the season either, really. So I don't really know where I'm going to go on my prediction for this one, because you'd like to back Leyton Orient as the home team and think they would kick into gear at some point, but Stevenage, I struggle to see them conceding much. So I'm going to go 1-1, I think, on this one.
That's exactly what I've gone for. 1-1.
Snap.
The Orient have the third worst XG conceded as well, which is not something you typically associate with us, especially after last season. Stevenage sit 20th in that category with 8.5.
I do think it is a matter of time before Leyton Orient click. I don't think they'll get to the same form as they did
No.
last season, but I do think there are better times on the horizon for Orient, and I do keep a watching brief on Stevenage to see if they'll maintain that momentum. The battle of the W's next as AFC Wimbledon, who I think have gone really under the radar.
Yeah.
I think mainly because they're either winning or they're still one of the few teams that haven't drawn a game this season.
Yep.
And I think whenever I look at their results, they're always lost. Or whenever I'm taking note of their results, they're always losing, other than the time that they beat Lincoln. But they've gone very under the radar, beating Doncaster and Rotherham the last two matches. Sitting ninth, only 1 point outside the playoffs, which is not where we expected them to be at this point. Meanwhile, Wycombe have already gone through a managerial change. A lot of us talked about that on the review episode at the weekend. So go back and listen to that once you've finished with this podcast. A lot talked about the different styles of football that will be played at Wycombe, and already off to a winning start against Northampton. This is the match that I think is interesting for Wycombe, because they've had a bit of time now. They've had a week to get philosophies down. They've had, I know that I think apparently they only had 20 minutes with the squad. Jamie was saying before the match at Northampton. They've had a bit of time to get the tactics into the players at Wycombe. This is the match now that they need to follow up, don't they? Wimbledon are we can say it now. 9 games is enough to say that they are a solid League One outfit, aren't they?
Yeah.
So for Wycombe to prove that they've got a point to make in this division now this season after a stuttering start, it has to start this weekend, I think.
Yeah, and Wycombe haven't won away any of their 4 away games, and Wimbledon have won 3 of their 4 home games. So Wimbledon, it's a difficult place to go. Wimbledon, it's a very I know it's a one of these more bowly sort of stadiums. It's kind of
Modern
flat
stadiums,
everywhere.
yeah.
While it's one of their modern stadiums, it is quite close to the pitch, so it can create a really good atmosphere. I think obviously we won't cover it in depth. What Jamie and Seb said kind of covers everything for Michael Duff. His win percentages are everywhere, pretty impressive. 40% at Cheltenham,
Mm.
55 at Barnsley. Obviously, then went to Swansea and did struggle in a time where Swansea didn't really invest in the squad. He then went to
Yeah.
Huddersfield and I think was pretty harshly treated. I thought personally, I know they're a bit up and down, but they've overhauled their squad this year and are still up and down. So I think he was harshly treated. He's got into Wycombe. It's always difficult, especially when you've had 20 minutes to put your ideas across. But sometimes it is just that fresh voice. Maybe they were
Mm.
under so much pressure with Dodds to stick to this philosophy that it actually put
Yeah.
pressure on them and didn't allow them the freedom to play. And I did see a lot more freedom in the way Wycombe played. Not only last night, where he rotated the entire squad in the cup and they got through, also the league game. So I think that's more positive for Wycombe. And there's undoubted quality in that squad. At the end of the day, they finish in the playoffs. So while they really struggled under Dodds, there is undoubted quality in that squad.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of score prediction, I think Wimbledon will win. Not Wimbledon, sorry, Wycombe. I think Wycombe will go
Yeah.
3-3 under Michael Duff. And I think they'll win 2-0.
Interesting. I kind of do back Wycombe in this situation, which is weird given the form and whether it is new manager bounce and whether we'll see Wycombe actually climb the table over a prolonged period of time, or we'll see them get into the top half and then kind of stabilise, which I don't think would be the worst for Wycombe this season, given the starts of the season they've had. I think they'd take a stable season. Every fan base wants to be pushing towards the playoffs, but I think Wycombe kind of need a season with the mass overhaul of players they've got. They
Yeah.
just need a season for Mike Dodds to not Mike Dodds, sorry, Michael Duff to sorry, there's a Freudian slip there. To understand the players that he has,
Yeah.
and dare I suggest the areas that he needs to have a yard sale on, and the players that he needs to recruit, which is interesting. I think in terms of scoreline, I'm going to go 2-1 to Wycombe.
Okay.
But again, this is both with a huge asterisk of we know that Wimbledon are good at home,
Yeah.
and we are probably both making a huge mistake here.
Yeah, we did this last week, didn't we? We recorded before Wycombe sacked Dodds. About 6 hours later, they announced the sacking of Dodds, and we've just sat there like, oh, the prediction. Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. Here we go. One team that I think has been a bit unlucky so far this season, I don't think their record is too bad, but they do sit at the foot of the table, is Burton Albion. They face Plymouth, who after a short rejuvenation went back to being Plymouth Argyle and lost 1-0 to Peterborough last week. That result was the one that put Burton at the bottom of the table, who themselves did very well to get a 0-0 draw at Huddersfield. So I might be in a bit weird here for Burton. Maybe my favouritism's coming back, and my years spent watching them as a kid is biting me on the backside here. I just think they've been I don't think they've been bad. Does that mean I don't think they've
I know what you
been
mean. Yeah.
bad this season? They're just not good.
I know what you're trying to say. I think the thing with Burton we've got to bear in mind as well is they've played 2 less games than everybody else. So let's say they drew both, they would be level on points with Posh. So I wouldn't hit the panic button with Burton just yet. We've got to bear in mind this is a very Burton thing to do. They give everyone a chance up until Christmas, and they love doing this sort of great escape. I'm sure their fans would like it to be sort of at the other end of the table, but there's always something to cling on to at Burton. I think defensively they look okay. They do look okay, but the big gripe was you lose Burrell, you lose Bodvarsson. Where are the goals going to come from? You look at, like we've discussed heavily, that Port Vale needed a striker. They went and got Devante Cole. I personally, as a goal scorer, Devante Cole's very good, but I always worried about his off-the-ball work. But at Port Vale, his main job's just going to be to score them 15, 20 goals to keep them up. That's going to be his job. He doesn't need to do anything else because they don't need him to. So maybe Burton have missed out on somebody like a Devante Cole in that regard. And I think this is going to be a very difficult test for them because we've described Plymouth as bipolar, I think it's fair to say, this season. Yeah. They're so hot and cold. Like, they smacked Stockport, they smacked Luton. Like, in terms of goal scoring, they scored 4 and 3 against them. And then to put in a performance at home to Peterborough, who had only won 1 game at the time, was pretty weird. I think that's fair to
Mm.
say. I know they've still got a lot of new players to still bed in, but so did Peterborough. Peterborough, at the end of the day, panicked on deadline day, but went a load of senior pros, which is completely against their model. So
Yeah.
it was strange, and they have struggled defensively. 18 goals conceded after 9 games is bad. Like, that's, you're never going to get into the top 6 with a defence that leaks 2 goals a game, meaning you have to score 3. That's just
Mm.
impossible. And I think this might be a good game for them because how poor Burton are going forward. It might be an opportunity for them to get another clean sheet. So I think I'm going to go for another away win here. And I think
Okay.
Burton will win. Plymouth will win 2-1. I do think Burton will score, though.
Interesting. I think the thing that backs up my point on Burton and kind of summarises what I want to say about them. Their average foot mob rating is 6.78, which puts them in mid-table.
Yeah.
So their average performance
It's
is
okay.
decent. You know, you
Yeah.
only have to look at the scores. They only lost 1-0 to Lincoln, and look at where they are in the table. Do you know what I mean? Like they are a decent side. You know, they are performing well. They're just not getting that end product.
And I think it's interesting that if you look at big chances in terms of created, Burton actually sits 14th with 15, which is more than Plymouth. It's more than Stevenage. It's more than Rotherham.
Mm.
It's more than Blackpool. It's more than Reading. It's more than Luton Town and Doncaster. So they are creating opportunities. It's just finishing them off.
It's very interesting. I think Plymouth. The difference is Plymouth have got the names. Plymouth
They
have
do.
got the individual quality.
Mhm.
You know, you saw with Tolage, you saw with other players that they've got that they can put the ball in the back of the net. If the whole squad is having an off day, it just takes one of them and a random ball in the box and a striker moving quicker than anyone else
Yeah.
to put the ball in the back. And you have more faith that Plymouth could do that over
Mhm.
Burton.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm all for the rage bait here, and I look forward to the vlog coming up on Sunday evening or Monday morning. Really looking forward to this one. I am going to go Burton 2-0.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I respect it. I like the boldness. The vibes are back.
I'm all for the Plymouth meltdown. And this it's nothing against Plymouth. It's just because when I load up the YouTube and I
Yeah.
just see that thumbnail come up, it does just make me a little bit happy. So let's try and manifest that into existence. Wigan against Cardiff. Wigan with that, I don't want to say humbling defeat because
Mm.
that's not really the word, but it was a bit of a shock to us all, really. 3-1 against Bradford last time out. That means they've not picked up a win in 2 games, the last one being that demolition job of Plymouth Argyle at the end of August. Such is the international break. It is technically correct to say that Cardiff haven't won in September. Which is the joy of international break football. Wigan themselves really don't know what to make of them this
Mm.
season. They beat Doncaster convincingly and then go and fall apart to Bolton. This really isn't what we were expecting from Wigan this season, is it?
No, we kind of still expected them to be really good defensively, but just add a bit more firepower, which they did. They're a bit like, I don't know if you've seen the
They had all
highlights
the building
against.
blocks, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you look, I don't know if you watched the highlights of them against Bolton. Defensively, they were a shambles. Like, they gifted 2 of the goals. And you can't do that against Bolton. You can't do that against
No.
any team, to be fair. It was pretty comical defending. So they're going to just hope that's an off day. But it is rather alarming how different they are defensively. Like, so good last year. I think it was 34 goals conceded. They've already conceded 13. They've conceded over a third of what they did last year in a sixth of the season. So that's the alarming part. But
Yeah.
then you go on the flip side and it's like they're scoring a lot more goals, so they're a lot more exciting, but it makes them so much more unpredictable. And again, I'll come back to it. If you want to get a challenge in the top 6, you probably need 20 clean sheets this season, I would say. I think defensively, a lot more teams look a lot more solid. Like, you look at your Bradford, your Stevenage, your Lincolns, your Cardiffs, they all look pretty good. So defensively, Wigan need to sort themselves out, quite frankly. Going forward, they look fine. And they're coming up against a Cardiff side who have not won in 2, which is interesting because we've said when Cardiff hit a little bit of a blip, we'll see the real Cardiff. We'll see the real Brian Barry Murphy. It's all well and good smashing your way through August when everyone's still trying, like analysts sit there and they have to analyse 3 or 4 games to get your patterns.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for a manager when someone goes in with a very similar squad to completely change it all. And
Yeah.
analysts don't pick up on that until about a month's time. And funnily enough, they've now not won in 2. So being like they've drawn with Stockport and they've lost to Bradford. That Bradford one was very interesting, especially at home, I might add. So this is a big game for Cardiff to bounce back away from home, try and get back on the gravy train, so to speak. But if they do fail to win, that'll be 3 without a win, and then you start getting these little questions asking,
Questions.
why
Yeah.
aren't we steamrolling everybody? Because we didn't really have them at Birmingham last year, to be honest. They just steamrolled everyone.
Yeah.
So we will start getting these little things picked out against Cardiff, and then that puts pressure on the players and the manager immediately at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm very intrigued on this one. Just another note on Wigan. Other than Bradford, who are the league's top goal scorers, who have had 28 goals in their game, and Plymouth with 29, who are the league's biggest conceders so far this season. No side has had more goals in their games than Wigan Athletic with 27. So that probably says a lot about the type of game that we expect this to be, especially given their past games have been a 2-2, a 1-1, a 2-2, a 3-0, and a 4-1. Like that probably says a lot about what this game is going to be. And
0-0.
Cardiff, yeah, and Cardiff are susceptible to scoring and leaking a few themselves, aren't they? As seen last time out, and then in their 4-0 win a couple of weeks ago. So I'm expecting quite a few goals in this game.
Oh,
I think, and I'm going to back Wigan
okay.
3-2. I think.
Oh, there's your high scoring game for the week.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
This is, like you say, this is a really difficult one. Like Wigan have won 3 of their 4 home games, drawing the other and only conceded the 2. And then Cardiff away have only conceded 1, but only scored the 3, winning 2 and drawing 2. So I'm going to go with a draw. I'm going to go a 1-1 draw, I think, for this one.
Very, very intriguing. Northampton Town, who sit mid-table, 3 points above the drop zone.
Well,
It's
they always
getting
are.
to the time of the season where I can just say that they're 5 points above the drop zone, and that's their season. Bolton, looking to get a bit of form. Unbeaten, they've only got 1 defeat all season. Unbeaten in their last 5 at least. Given the form table that's in front of me, that's all I can safely say without memorising their results. But still, a decent run of form for Bolton. They're looking a bit more assured at the back.
Yep.
Things are looking up for them, but
Yeah.
there's always that
It's
worry, isn't there, with Bolton that it could self-combust at any point.
Yeah, I said last week that it was only a matter of time before Bolton explode and batter somebody. I didn't
expect it to be that week.
No, I expect it to be this week. I know Northampton have only conceded 8 goals, but the amount of firepower that Bolton have, I'd put it on Birmingham levels of good from last year. Like the 2 wingers they've got, I think, are better than the 2 Birmingham wingers they had last year in Koza Dewberry and Gale. I think they're better. Striker, like you're comparing Burstow with Stansfield. Stansfield wins that. But in terms of creativity, I just think Bolton are one. And when they click, they are one of the most explosive and exciting teams, I think, to watch in League One. Unbeaten in 8 since they only lost the opening day against Stockport. And by all accounts, they were the better team in that game as well. So I'm waiting for Bolton to put in a really poor performance. Obviously, they have shown that sort of character as well to get a last-minute equaliser against Orient the week before. They have the most shots on target per match with 5 on average. They average the second most passes per match. So in terms of the top statistics, they're very, very strong. 261 touched in the opposition box, which is 30 more than anybody else. So in terms of the attacking statistics, they're unbelievably good. And if you look at the attacking statistics for Northampton, they're the second worst in terms of expected goals, have only scored 5, but have a knack of just winning 1-0 because they're so solid and it's the Sam Allardyce sort of blueprint. They're a bunch of horrible gits off the ball. They'll kick you, they'll win their duels, but they just lack that sort of bit of flair in the final third, which used to be somebody like a Sam Hoskins and Mitch Pinnock. Mitch Pinnock's now obviously at Bromley. Hoskins is now, I think, 33. So sometimes it just needs that little bit of... We say it a lot about... I see it here a lot about Arsenal. Just release the shackles a little bit in the final third. Just give them a bit more freedom. But then the argument for that is will it affect them defensively? And that's kind of their blueprint. That's how they pick up points. They get a set piece, they win the header, they win 1-0. That's kind of how
Yeah.
Northampton go about their business.
I'm interested to see how Northampton's season unfolds because given some of the teams that are below them and the quality we know they have, but below them, that the likes of Plymouth, as much as we joke, we expect them to rise.
Mm-hmm.
Wycombe, we expect to rise. Peterborough can't be this bad all season. Neither can Blackpool or Rotherham or Reading, really. So that only leads Exeter, Port Vale, and Burton below
Yeah.
them. So they they've not made as good a start as some of the other teams we expect to be in and around the drop zone. But then again, given the teams we expected to be around the drop zone were Stevenage at the start of the season, maybe we need to recalibrate that as a metric of judgment. For this one in terms of scoreline, I kind of back Bolton. I just think they have, like you say, incredible firepower. And the alarming statistic is they've had 11 big chances missed already so far
Mm-hmm.
this season, which is the 8th most in the division. Dare they score a few of them, it's going to be worry town for the rest of the teams in League One. So I'm going to go. Oh, let's go 2-0 Bolton.
Yeah, that's what I've gone for. And I have wild carded that game as well, in the hope that eventually one of my wild card clicks because my wild cards are appalling.
And finally, before we get to our fan feature, Stockport against Reading. Stockport just on the outside of the playoff places at the minute. Not been as total dominance as we
Mm.
expected from them so far this season, but they do potentially look like they're clicking into gear. We'll see. The win last time out against Rotherham was kind of a bit more hard fought than we probably
Yeah.
expected it to have been. But Reading, we'll see. Victory last time out against Leyton Orient, still not
Yeah.
convinced.
No, I'm not. I'm not convinced about Reading, and that's nothing against the squad of players they've got. Because I think some of the players they've got are very, very good for League One. Like you've got Lewis Wing and Charlie Savage in there. It's one of the best pivots you can have in League One. Um, it's nothing against Noel Hunt. I just don't think tactically he's of the level of some of the other managers in the league. And with the league being so competitive this year, especially in the top 12, you kind of need your manager gives you that extra 5% sometimes in games in terms of
Yeah.
organisation, in terms of rotation. So I think that's where Reading lack. I know they've only lost one in their last 5. There is pressure on Noel Hunt just purely because of their league position in the table. They invested quite heavily, obviously, in the summer as well, with a lot of new players coming in. So it'll be interesting to see where Reading are after this, because obviously going to Edgeley Park is one of the most difficult places to go. And we have seen signs that Stockport are starting to get back on the right track. Draw against Cardiff and winning last time out 1-0, which is more of the Stockport way. They keep clean sheets and they win by 1 or 2 goals. They're still, I think, trying to get the best out of Nathan Lowe. Jaden Fevrier is obviously coming back from injury. Malik Mother is still yet to, their big money signing still yet to sort of hit the ground running. But you've got Ben Osborne and Oliver Norwood in your side. You're going to be pretty good game management wise if you take the lead. So at home, I expect Stockport to do the business, and I expect them to win 2-0.
It's exactly the scoreline I had in mind.
Yeah.
So I'll go 2-0 as well. We'll get on to the rest of the fixtures in League One in just a moment, but time to bring our fan view with Sky Bet. And this time inspired almost by the first sacking of the season as Mike Dodds leads Wycombe. The idea of extending the transfer window to include managers.
Mm.
Now, I'm kind of 50-50 on this because I think in an idealistic world, everyone likes everything to be neatly packaged and
Mm-hmm.
and in a box, and managers like that as well because they always talk about wanting their squad to be sorted for the first match week. But if that was the case, you're losing a huge part of what I think is fun about football. And as much as we complain about how there's no loyalty in the game
Mm.
and this, that, and the other, it is great seeing a manager come in and the whole story of that team season changes. We had him on the podcast when we were in our infancy, when we were speaking to Dino Marmia, and his albeit he's not been in football for a while now, but coming in and rescuing teams. We saw it with David Moyes last season and Everton. Sean Dyche doing it with Everton previously. Just a manager being able to come in and rescue a football club. And I quite liked seeing that. So if you had a transfer window for managers, that would remove that as part of the fun, part of the debate.
Okay, so I'm going to come at the other side. So we've got nice ways of argument. The thing,
Balanced, yeah,
nice balanced argument here. So with a manager transfer window, I would you could do it differently to sort of you have a January and a summer. You could do it differently. So you could have one. You could have two. You could have one in October or November time, and then you have one in February or March, because that's when teams seem to like sacking their managers. I personally don't think managers get enough time at the moment.
I agree. Yeah.
Mike Dodds had long enough. I'll be quite frank. Mike Dodds had long enough. He had 9 months, and they were still rubbish. So fair enough. They fully in their right to sack him. But there's some managers who get 2-3 months, not good enough out the door. Especially when you've had a overhaul of players. I think it's not just football clubs; it's also football fans. They're very reactionary nowadays. Everything is expected for success immediately. It's like, oh, you've bought, I don't know, £20 million worth of players, right? You must do this. And it's like, well, actually, if you took at the bigger picture, this club spent 10, this club spent 5, this club already had this. And I just feel like managers take the flak when sometimes you've got to look at the players as well. And you can't exactly just sack a player, can you? So
no.
I just think managers sometimes take too much of the flak when sometimes it's the players that should be taking some of the flak.
I think this is one of those things that we'll see change in football over time. I mean, you only have to have a look at the teams that are currently top of League One. Stevenage have had a long time with their manager in terms of compared to football at the minute. You have to look at Lincoln City. They've stuck with Scapala for 2 years now, and obviously
we've had Wellens.
There have been patchy forms in there. You saw Richie Wellens as well. I think there is a lot to be said about manager loyalty now. We're living in a era of football where owners crave stability. They crave guarantees, which is never possible in football. But you look at what Birmingham did last season, it all comes back to money, doesn't it? They spent so much money to guarantee promotion.
Yeah.
Right? And I think eventually owners will come back to the thinking of, okay, let's keep what we know and let's build around what we know until we know that person has reached the top of their powers and then make a change.
Yeah.
I think that maybe that's a bit too, I don't know, positive thinking about it. And there'll always be some managers who just say, nope, not good enough, we're rolling the dice.
Yeah.
But I think to put some sort of framework around that is probably, I don't want to say dangerous, but not in the spirit of football. I think it's just one of those things that, dare I say the word, in this economy, but market forces will dictate how football changes over time.
So if we look at the managers, I'll list off managers that have been in their post 2 years. So what are we now? So I'll go from November 2023. So these are the only managers that have been at their club. So Nigel Clough was 2020 in March for Mansfield. They've done pretty well under him.
Yeah,
to be fair to them. Dave Challoner at Stockport. Obviously, he's had numerous promotions with them. Richie Wellens with us, March 2022.
Yeah.
Johnny
14.
Jackson was May 2022.
Yeah.
Gary Caldwell was October 2022. Darren Ferguson was January 2023. Grant McCann was May 2023. Graham Alexander was November 2023, and so was Michael Skibala.
There's a lot to be said about loyalty.
League One's not actually too bad. A lot of managers have been there for quite a decent amount of time, which is good. I personally think 1 year, a full season. Sometimes managers need longer. Like we look at Premier League Amorim, for example. He probably needs a bit longer. I personally think, anyway.
Well, I don't know. I think only Man United manager needs decades at this point.
But it's good to see some clubs do have sort of loyalty to their manager. Like they give him proper time to get their philosophies across. Like you could use Exeter as a really good example. They could have easily sacked Gary Caldwell when they were going through that humongous dip, but they kept faith and they were rewarded by a stable mid-table finish. And it's the same this season. They're sort of mid-table. and that they don't over expect themselves to be challenging for that top six. There is a realistic expectation at a lot of these clubs, where you find some of the other clubs. I'm going to use Barnsley as an example because they're the first one to pop into my head. There is sometimes an unrealistic expectation that they should be higher
Yeah.
than they are.
I think it's one of those things we'll see come back into fashion is manager. We see that's the thing with football, isn't it? There's trends here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
And hopefully, longer manager stints is something that's here to stay. But that's our fan view, brought to you by Sky Bet, the partners of this podcast. Let's move in then to the final few games. Barnsley against Port Vale. Barnsley trailing off a little bit, 2 defeats in the last 4, but sandwiched between that was 2 wins against Huddersfield and Reading. Barnsley, where do we stand on them against Port Vale? A side that will need to pick up a win, having they'll be looking to make it 3 in a row, won't they? After wins against Exeter, Mansfield. I think both of these teams kind of cancel each other out with their form/quality. So a draw would be the notable middle ground here. But why not back Port Vale? I'm all for the Seb rage bait here. After he said it was hard to impress me in the review episode, I'm going to predict his team to lose. I'll back Port Vale 1-0 here, even though I don't think that's going to be the scoreline. I'm just here to rage bait Seb.
That one is a vibes pick. I've gone for 2-2. Obviously, Barnsley, at the time of recording, the Wednesday games haven't played in the Cup, so Port Vale haven't played. But Barnsley got whacked 6-0 by Brighton, so I do think that will harm sort of something around them. So I've gone for a 2-2.
Well, Gomez was responsible for that. One of the best hat tricks in world football. Incredible. Exeter against Huddersfield. Exeter in a bit of a slump, 3 defeats on the trot against a Huddersfield town side who are also looking for their first win in 2 matches after back-to-back winless weeks. Interesting one, this one. I think Huddersfield will be looking to prove a point, but Exeter a resilient side at times. I think it's fair to say it kind of depends what side shows up. So I'm going to back Huddersfield though. I think they've got the quality, but I think it'll be a very hard fought match, 1-0.
Okay, I've gone for 2-1 to Huddersfield in that one. I would be interested to see if they lose this, will Lee Grant come under some pressure, the same sort of pressure Michael Duff did? You can't have one rule for one rule for another, I suppose.
Yeah, very, very interesting in terms of how Huddersfield's season will play out. They're in the playoffs, but that's not where fans expect to be. They expect to be pushing for the title. Mansfield against Rotherham. Rotherham in the relegation zone, not where their fans want to be. Mansfield winless in 4. Interesting.
Yeah, I said this would happen to Mansfield because they had that cup game. Everyone was a bit more upbeat, playing for a place in that. Obviously, they played Orient just before they played them. They smacked us to pieces and haven't won since. So I do think they'll win this weekend, though. I think Rotherham are turgid. They're that side, the Peterborough of this year. Everyone expected them to be top 6. They're not. They're in the relegation battle, and they are in a relegation battle.
I think there's an argument to be said that Peterborough are the Peterborough of this season.
We could ask Blackpool as well, I suppose. But I'm going to go for a Mansfield 2-1 win. I think they're okay at home. So
I'm going to go for a drab 0-0. I don't
you
see
do like
any
your
excitement
0-0s at the moment.
I don't see any excitement in this at all. Luton against Doncaster. Now, this one's going to be my wild card because the atmosphere around Luton absolutely reeks at the minute.
It does, yeah.
It absolutely stinks. And Doncaster, even though the side hasn't turned up for the last 2 weeks, I still think that they're fairly happy where they are at a club. So I'm going to go 2-0 win for Doncaster, and I reckon this is the match where the fan base...
Yeah.
I mean, Bloomfield's already lost half the players and half the fans. This is the one where it goes.
Yeah, like you say, this is huge for Matt Bloomfield, and obviously Jamie will cover it, and Seb will cover it more on Sunday in the review show when they have inevitably drawn or lost. But there is a really bad atmosphere at Luton. Obviously, Premier League side 2 seasons ago, relegated, and they're struggling. They really are struggling. I can't remember the last. I think the last side to have back-to-back-to-back relegations was. I don't think it's ever been done.
Was it Portsmouth? Did
Portsmouth rings a bell.
Or was it Scunthorpe when they? But it's never been done when the team's not been in financial decay, has it? From
No,
the top of my head.
I believe Scunthorpe did it. Yeovil near enough did it. So yeah, I don't think they'll go down. That's not me saying they're going to go down, but
Well, who knows? They're only
stranger things have
5
happened
points
in
above the
football.
drop.
But the atmosphere around that place, like you say, it stinks.
It
It's so poor.
absolutely reeks.
So they've got to get off to a quick start. They've got to score early because if they don't, the atmosphere could turn very quickly.
Well,
And I've gone for
the
1-1.
atmosphere turned quickly against them when they were 0-0. Like
And you
it was.
wildcarded that one, didn't you?
Yeah, I wildcarded that one. I just really worry for Luton, which again didn't think we'd say this season.
No.
You thought surely back to back relegations from the Premier League, surely the gap there is big enough for them to actually have some sort of
Yeah.
stability. But I don't know. We'll see. Bradford against Blackpool, the battle of the bees. Enjoy that one, commentators. Really, we kind of expected these two teams to be in flipped positions.
Yeah, we did.
Really, Bradford would lead in the league at the minute, whereas Blackpool a win last time out, but you don't really know where their season's going at this point.
No, this is the battle of the best expected goals team in Bradford and the worst with Blackpool. Yeah, Blackpool were a weird one. The late winner last week from Jordan Brown might help to do the confidence around the squad. It may help, but Bradford are impeccable at home. They just don't. They just used their momentum extremely well last year, and they're just a well knit team. Like they just look like everyone knows what they're doing. And obviously that they have got the big club mentality in this sort of league, and everyone does see them still as a scalp, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to beat them at the end of the day. I think this is actually quite a tricky one to call though, because I saw enough positive signs from Blackpool last week to think that they could get something, but then in my other head, it's like Bradford the best attacking team in this league in terms of statistics. So
Yeah,
in that sort of way, it should be a no brainer. But I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Another 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. I hope it's a 2-2 draw because then that'll open the door for the team that we're going to talk about next to skyrocket up the league. But I in my heart of hearts, I can't see Bradford not winning this. I just think their home form is incredible. I think off the top of my head, and yeah, second in the league for home form. So not quite as good as it could be, but Huddersfield have played a game more at home. They are unbeaten at home. Won all 4 of their matches at home this season. I can't see that stopping against the team that are 21st in the league. Was it 22nd in the league?
22nd in the league, yeah.
Sorry, I'm doing you justice, Blackpool. You're worse than I imagined. So I'm going to go 2-0 Bradford.
2-0.
In all realism, this could be a 5-0, but we'll find out. Peterborough against Lincoln, as close to as a local rivalry really as Lincoln get in this match. So the fan base are up for it. Mentioned at the start of this episode as well. Lincoln against Chelsea was an incredible atmosphere at Sincil Bank. The fans will travel in their numbers to Peterborough, and that there is just this complete atmosphere of hope around the club of the thing with Lincoln this season is no one expected them to be where they are. Like no one expected this season because we left a lot of our business and good business to the end of the transfer window. The fans' expectation was just like, fine, mid-table, sure, whatever. And now we're third. We were first for 20 minutes last week. Like these are things that don't happen here in Lincoln. We've been used to the middle of the table for the past 5 years. So I am intrigued, and Peterborough just it's weird, isn't it? Because they've won back-to-back games, but they're still second bottom, and neither of those games have been particularly convincing. Wins 2-1 against Wycombe, 1-0 against Plymouth. So the door's open for Lincoln to do something quite rare, which is win at Peterborough. That doesn't happen.
Yeah. I'm really struggling with this one. And it's for the same reasons what I said about Mansfield. Is you knew you had this really big cup game and your result, don't get me wrong, your results are impeccable this year. You look a really good defensive side, especially defensively, and you're playing 4 strikers, 2 out wide, 1 in attacking midfield, 1 up front. It's brilliant. But my concern, well, it's not concern, is Peterborough decided they actually want to be Peterborough again and won 2 games in a row. And they've beaten Wycombe and they beat Plymouth. And more impressively, they got a clean sheet against Plymouth as well.
Yeah.
So I don't particularly want to predict another draw, but I don't particularly want you lot to predict you lot to lose because I do that quite a lot and I feel bad.
Look, please keep doing it.
Please do it. I'm gonna
Please.
I'm gonna go with a 1-1 draw. I'm gonna go with another draw. Lots of draws
Mm.
this week for me.
I think Lincoln will get it done. Um, I see where you're talking about with Peterborough. They managed to get it across the line in their last two games. But the thing is with Lincoln, and this is what I will say, is he rotated the team last night.
Yeah.
And there is this feeling around the club that no player is playing for themselves.
Yeah.
Like he played, still played the cup goalkeeper. Didn't play Collins up front at least to start with. Played Draper up top. There were still first team aspects, the back four and whatnot. But I don't see a reason why that cup game distracted Lincoln. You only have to listen to the pre-match interviews. I think, which speak volume about how laser focused Lincoln City are at the minute. And I'm gonna. I don't want to tempt fate because Lincoln have got a horrible record against Peterborough. Peterborough, it sucks. But I think Lincoln will win 2-1.
2-1.
I
Yeah.
think Lincoln will win 2-1.
If I was to predict a winner, I would probably go with you lot. It's a fate, like you
I
say.
don't like speaking that into existence though, because
But
it's
I think the big question is, will Lincoln get a red card this year? We've already got 3.
very
So
probably.
will you get another
Let's
one?
be honest. Who will be sent off in this match? Let's find out.
You also had the most yellow
Uh,
cards, so yeah, worst discipline side in the
it's
league.
gonna be fun. Well, at least that's paid for the players, players' fines and whatnot. I think Ben House, Legacy strikers, midfielder this season. Really, he's come out and said that now that he gets fined for his discipline, he now is actually deciding to play football. So maybe they should have fined them earlier. That would have helped. But that is it for this episode of the League One Lowdown preview show with the Football Deck. As we said at the start of the episode, make sure you hit subscribe and like the video whilst you're at it. It really is appreciated. Make sure you follow us on wherever you get your podcast. If you're listening to us on audio as well, leave a rating and drop us a comment as well whilst you're at it. But that is it for this episode. It's goodbye from me and Sam. Enjoy the weekend of football, and we'll see you very soon.